Hollywood doesn't just create stars, it creates illusions so convincing that millions believe them without question, but behind the cameras and red carpets, disturbing allegations have surfaced exposing a darker side few expected. When fame protects silence for years, what happens when the truth finally comes out? And what you're about to hear will change how you see Hollywood forever. Morgan Freeman. For decades, Morgan Freeman stood as one of Hollywood's most trusted figures. With his calm demeanor and instantly recognizable voice, he was often cast as the embodiment of wisdom, authority, and moral clarity. Audiences believed in him not just because of his performances, but because his public image seemed to match the roles he played. That image began to fracture in 2018 when multiple women came forward with allegations of inappropriate behavior in professional settings. These claims did not stem from isolated encounters, but from women who worked alongside Freeman on major film productions and interacted with him in workplace environments where professionalism was expected. One production assistant alleged that during the filming of Going in Style in 2015, Freeman repeatedly engaged in conduct that made her uncomfortable while she was carrying out her duties on set. Another woman reported similar experiences during the production of Now You See Me in 2012, stating that Freeman made comments about her appearance and clothing that crossed personal and professional boundaries. What added another layer of concern was a statement from a senior crew member who suggested that this behavior was widely known within certain production circles. According to that account, informal measures were taken behind the scenes to prevent women from being alone with Freeman, indicating a quiet awareness that never reached the public eye. In response to the allegations, Freeman issued a public apology explaining that he never intended to make anyone feel uncomfortable or disrespected. While he acknowledged the impact of his actions, he did not admit to the specific claims made against him. The controversy left behind unresolved questions about how much of Morgan Freeman's revered image was genuine and how much was sustained by silence. In an industry built on perception, the contrast between who someone appears to be on screen and what may occur behind closed doors can be both jarring and deeply unsettling. James Franco. For years, James Franco cultivated the image of a restless genius. Actor, director, writer, teacher, he was everywhere doing everything, praised for his ambition and intellectual edge. Hollywood framed him as the unconventional artist who refused to be boxed in. That reputation began to unravel in 2018. 5 women came forward with allegations of sexual misconduct, 4 of whom were former students at Franco's acting school, Studio 4. They claimed Franco used his position as a teacher and employer to blur professional boundaries, creating situations where students felt pressured and exploited rather than empowered. What was presented as mentorship, they said, often carried an unspoken cost. Actress Sarah Tyler Kaplan, who worked with Franco on The Disaster Artist, publicly accused him of predatory behavior and of fostering a culture where young women were encouraged to remain silent. Around the same time, Franco's former girlfriend Violet Paley alleged that he pressured her into intimate acts she did not want, adding another layer to the growing controversy. Franco initially denied the accusations through his representatives, maintaining that the claims were false. But in 2022, he publicly admitted that he had engaged in sexual relationships with students at his acting school, acknowledging that his behavior reflected deeper personal issues. The lawsuits filed by former students were settled in 2019 for $2.2 million, and Studio 4 quietly shut its doors in 2017. The fallout was swift and decisive. Franco was dropped from multiple projects, disappeared from award season conversations, and saw his once unstoppable career grind to a halt. No dramatic courtroom verdict, no public redemption arc, just a slow fade from the spotlight. James Franco's story became a cautionary tale about power disguised as creativity, about how authority, when left unchecked, can corrupt even those celebrated as visionaries. In Hollywood, being talented is never enough, and when the mask slips, ambition offers no protection. Sylvester Stallone. For millions of fans, Sylvester Stallone is the ultimate symbol of toughness and perseverance. He is the underdog who fights back, the warrior who never quits, the man behind Rocky and Rambo. His career is built on grit, discipline, and the idea that strength conquers all. But behind the muscle and mythology, darker allegations have followed him for decades. In 2017, reports resurfaced involving a woman who claimed that an incident occurred in the 1980s when she was underage. According to documents filed at the time, she alleged that Stallone and a bodyguard engaged in serious misconduct and intimidated her into silence. The case was investigated years later, but no charges were filed due to lack of evidence and the statute of limitations. Separate from that case, another woman accused Stallone of forcing himself on her in the early 1990s. That allegation also prompted a police investigation, but prosecutors ultimately declined to pursue charges again, citing insufficient evidence. Stallone has consistently and forcefully denied all accusations, calling them completely false and fabricated. His legal team has repeatedly argued that these claims were motivated by financial gain or media attention, emphasizing that Stallone has never been convicted or formally charged in connection with any of the allegations. Still, the stories refuse to disappear, lingering in the background of a career built on public admiration. What makes this case especially unsettling is the contrast. On screen, Stallone plays men who stand for honor and resilience. Off-screen, the allegations tell a far more complicated and troubling story, one that Hollywood never fully confronted. And so the question remains: when fame lasts long enough, does the truth eventually catch up, or does it fade quietly behind box office success and iconic roles? In Stallone's case, the answers remain buried in the past, unresolved and deeply controversial. Do you think Hollywood protects powerful actors for too long, or are these stories more complicated than they seem? Let us know your thoughts below. Richard Branson. For decades, Richard Branson was celebrated as the ultimate billionaire rebel. Barefoot charismatic and endlessly optimistic, he built the Virgin Empire on a carefully crafted image of freedom, fun, and fearless entrepreneurship. To the public, Branson was the rare tycoon who felt approachable, almost untouchable by scandal. That perception was challenged when his name surfaced in allegations connected to the Jeffrey Epstein network. Virginia Giuffre, a known Epstein accuser, claimed that she was trafficked and forced into inappropriate encounters with powerful men, and she publicly named Branson among them, alleging the incident took place on Epstein's private island. The claim immediately drew global attention, placing Branson in a narrative far darker than his adventurous public persona. Branson responded forcefully and without hesitation. He categorically denied the allegations, calling them false, baseless, and completely untrue. He stated that he had never been to Epstein's island under the circumstances described and emphasized that there was no evidence supporting the claim. No charges were filed and no independent proof has emerged linking Branson to wrongdoing. Legally, the matter went nowhere. Publicly, however, the damage was more complicated. Unlike other figures tied to Epstein who faced serious consequences, Branson remained largely insulated, protected by the absence of corroboration and legal action. Still, the mere association raised uncomfortable questions about proximity to power privilege, and the world's wealthy elites moved through unseen. Richard Branson's case stands apart because it exists in a gray zone. No court ruling, no settlement, no formal reckoning, just an allegation that refuses to fully disappear. In Hollywood and high society alike, sometimes controversy does not destroy a reputation outright. Sometimes it lingers quietly, hovering just beneath the surface, waiting for history to decide whether silence meant innocence or simply influence. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want more uncensored deep dives into the darkest secrets of fame and power. John Travolta. For decades, John Travolta was Hollywood's ultimate comeback story. From Disco King in Saturday Night Fever to cult legend in Pulp Fiction, he reinvented himself again and again. Charming, polished, and endlessly professional, Travolta cultivated an image of control and respectability in an industry known for chaos. But behind that carefully managed persona, troubling allegations began to surface. As early as 2000, a male massage therapist accused Travolta of making unwanted advances during a private session at a luxury hotel in California. At the time, the story faded quietly, attracting little public attention. Years later, however, it would resurface with far more force. In 2012, multiple male massage therapists came forward with similar claims. Two of them filed lawsuits alleging that Travolta touched them without consent during separate sessions. The accusations shared striking similarities in location, behavior, and circumstance, raising serious questions about a possible pattern. Although the lawsuits were later dismissed, the damage to Travolta's public image had already begun. Then, in 2017, another allegation emerged from a former police officer who claimed that Travolta had behaved inappropriately during a massage session years earlier. Once again, Travolta denied the claims and no criminal charges were filed. Legally, Travolta walked away unscathed. Publicly, the situation was far more complicated. What made the story linger was not just the number of accusations, but their consistency. Different accusers, different years, similar experiences, yet no definitive legal resolution ever arrived to close the chapter. Today, John Travolta remains active in Hollywood, but the shadow never fully disappeared. His story stands as another reminder that in an industry built on image, some narratives are carefully polished for the screen, while others remain hidden just out of sight. And in Hollywood, silence does not always mean innocence. Sometimes it simply means the story never truly ended. Michael Douglas. For decades, Michael Douglas was Hollywood royalty. The Oscar winner, known for playing powerful, morally complex men, built a career on intensity and control, from Wall Street to Basic Instinct. Douglas mastered roles that blurred ambition, desire, and authority, earning both acclaim and fearlessness in equal measure. In 2018, that legacy was suddenly questioned. Journalist and author Susan Braude accused Douglas of misconduct stemming from an incident she said occurred more than 3 decades earlier. According to her account, Douglas behaved inappropriately in a professional setting and later used his influence to block her career, creating what she described as a hostile environment marked by crude comments and abuse of power. Douglas responded immediately and aggressively. He categorically denied the allegations, calling them a complete fabrication and stating that the claims were false in every respect. He emphasized that no complaint had ever been filed at the time and that no evidence supported the accusation. Douglas also spoke publicly about the toll the allegation took on him and his family, particularly his children. No legal action followed. No charges were filed. The story quickly lost momentum after Douglas's public denial. Yet the controversy left an imprint, not because of court rulings or verdicts, but because it forced the public to re-examine the characters Douglas had played for years and wonder where performance ended and reality began. When accusations surface decades later, truth becomes harder to untangle and perception often fills the gaps left by time. Michael Douglas emerged without legal consequence, but the episode served as a reminder that even the most established icons are not immune to scrutiny. In Hollywood, reputations built over lifetimes can be questioned in a single headline, and sometimes the damage is not measured in convictions but in doubt that never fully disappears. Should past behavior permanently define an actor's career, or is there room for accountability and redemption? Comment your opinion. Charlie Sheen. At one point, Charlie Sheen was untouchable. He was television's highest-paid star, a headline magnet, and the embodiment of reckless Hollywood excess. Fame, money, and chaos followed him everywhere, and for years it seemed like nothing could slow him down. Then the allegations began to stack up. In the late 2010s, former child actor Corey Feldman publicly accused Sheen of serious misconduct involving another young actor during the filming of Lucas in the mid-1980s. Feldman claimed he was told about the incident directly by the alleged victim, framing it as part of a much larger, long-ignored problem in Hollywood. Sheen strongly denied the accusation, calling it false and defamatory. Beyond that explosive claim, multiple women have accused Sheen of inappropriate behavior over the years. These allegations described a pattern of intimidation, manipulation, and conduct that blurred boundaries, often fueled by Sheen's well-documented substance abuse and volatile lifestyle. While not all accusations resulted in legal action together, they painted a picture that was deeply damaging. What made Sheen's case different was that the accusations did not exist in isolation. They collided with years of public meltdowns, erratic interviews, and self-admitted struggles with addiction. His carefully crafted image as a charming bad boy slowly transformed into something far more disturbing. Sheen has consistently denied all allegations of misconduct, insisting that he has been targeted unfairly and that the stories are either exaggerated or outright lies. Legally, he has avoided convictions related to these claims, but the court of public opinion has been far less forgiving. Once the king of television, Charlie Sheen became a cautionary tale. A reminder that when excess goes unchecked for too long, the collapse is not sudden. It is slow, messy, and impossible to ignore. In Hollywood, fame can protect you for a while, but eventually it demands a reckoning. T.J. Miller. For a time, T.J. Miller was everywhere. Loud, unpredictable, and unapologetically crude, he carved out a niche as Hollywood's favorite wild card. His breakout role on Silicon Valley turned him into a scene stealer, while film roles and stand-up comedy cemented his image as the guy who could say anything and get away with it. That persona began to fall apart as serious allegations surfaced. One of the most significant accusations came from a former classmate at George Washington University who alleged that Miller engaged in violent and non-consensual behavior during their time in college. The details she described were disturbing, and although Miller strongly denied the claim, dismissing it as false and motivated by personal resentment, the accusation followed him relentlessly. At the same time, concerns about Miller's behavior on set began to emerge. Actress Alice Wetterlund, his co-star on Silicon Valley, publicly described Miller as a bully who made the work environment uncomfortable and hostile. While her claims did not involve criminal accusations, they reinforced the perception that Miller's off-screen conduct was far less humorous than his on-screen performances. As scrutiny intensified, Miller's career began to unravel. He exited Silicon Valley, lost film opportunities, and became increasingly known not for his talent but for controversy. Public incidents, erratic interviews, and legal troubles unrelated to the allegations only accelerated his downfall. Miller has continued to deny the most serious claims against him, and no conviction resulted from those allegations. Still in Hollywood, reputation is currency. Once it collapses, recovery is rare. T.J. Miller's story is a cautionary tale about how quickly a comedic persona can turn toxic. When outrageous behavior is rewarded long enough, the line between performance and reality disappears. And when that line is crossed, laughter is often the first thing to vanish. Steven Seagal. For years, Steven Seagal built his career on intimidation and control. On screen, he was the untouchable action star, a man who dominated every room with physical power and absolute confidence. His characters did not ask, they took. And according to numerous accusations, that attitude did not stop when the cameras shut off. Over the span of decades, multiple women came forward alleging inappropriate behavior by Seagal in professional settings. These were not anonymous rumors, but detailed accounts from actresses and colleagues who claimed that meetings, rehearsals, and auditions quickly turned uncomfortable. Several women described situations where Seagal allegedly crossed boundaries under the guise of discussing film roles or career opportunities. One actress recalled a meeting where Seagal allegedly behaved in a manner she found alarming and unprofessional. Another woman described being subjected to advances during what was supposed to be a routine rehearsal. Former Bond girl Rachel Grant also accused Seagal of conduct that she said went far beyond acceptable behavior during a film audition. What made the accusations especially disturbing was their consistency. Different women, different years, different projects. Yet the same underlying theme appeared again and again. Power, control, silence. Seagal has repeatedly denied all allegations, dismissing them as false or exaggerated. No criminal convictions have resulted from these claims. Still, as the stories accumulated, Hollywood quietly responded. Roles dried up, invitations disappeared. Seagal's once dominant presence faded from mainstream American cinema. Today, Steven Seagal's legacy is no longer defined by box office numbers or action sequences. Instead, it is overshadowed by unanswered questions and a long trail of accusations that Hollywood never fully addressed. Because sometimes the most dangerous reputation is not the one written into a script, but the one whispered about behind closed doors. If this video changed the way you see your favorite actor, subscribe now. More shocking stories are coming. CeeLo Green. At his peak, CeeLo Green was a crossover phenomenon. A chart-topping artist, a charismatic judge on The Voice, and a personality embraced by mainstream America. His image was playful, eccentric, and harmless, the kind of star who felt more like an entertainer than a threat. That image shattered in 2012. A woman accused CeeLo Green of drugging her during a night out, claiming she later woke up with no memory of what had happened. The allegation immediately drew intense media scrutiny, but what truly ignited public outrage came next. In a series of social media posts, Green made comments that appeared to minimize the seriousness of consent, suggesting that if someone was unconscious, wrongdoing could not occur. The backlash was immediate and unforgiving. Fans, fellow artists, and advocacy groups condemned the statements, calling them disturbing and irresponsible. Under mounting pressure, Green issued a public apology claiming his words were taken out of context and that he never intended to justify harmful behavior. However, by then the damage was already done. Although criminal charges were eventually dropped, the court of public opinion had reached its verdict. Green quietly stepped away from the spotlight. Television appearances vanished. Endorsements disappeared. His role on The Voice ended without ceremony. CeeLo Green's downfall was not defined by a single allegation alone, but by how he responded when the spotlight turned harsh. In Hollywood, scandals can sometimes be survived. Dismissive words rarely are. His story stands as a reminder that fame amplifies everything, especially mistakes. And when a public figure speaks carelessly about serious issues, the consequences can echo louder than any hit song ever could. Ben Affleck. For years, Ben Affleck was Hollywood's redemption story. From early stardom to public struggles and then a triumphant return as an award-winning filmmaker, his narrative was one of survival, growth, and second chances. To many, Affleck represented a man who had learned from his mistakes and rebuilt himself in the spotlight. That image was challenged in 2017. Actress Hilarie Burton accused Affleck of inappropriate behavior during a televised appearance in 2003, claiming he touched her in a way that crossed clear boundaries. The moment long archived on camera resurfaced during the height of the industry's reckoning. Unlike many others, Affleck responded quickly. He acknowledged the incident and issued a public apology admitting that his behavior was wrong. But the story did not end there. Makeup artist Anna Marie Tendler later alleged that Affleck behaved inappropriately toward her at a Golden Globes party in 2014. Her account resonated with other women who came forward with similar experiences, describing uncomfortable interactions at industry events where power and celebrity often blur lines that should never be crossed. Affleck's name was also pulled into a much larger controversy when actress Rose McGowan criticized him for allegedly knowing about Harvey Weinstein's behavior while remaining silent. McGowan claimed that Affleck's public condemnation of Weinstein rang hollow, suggesting complicity through inaction. Affleck denied having prior knowledge, but the accusation added another layer of doubt to his carefully rebuilt image. While Affleck apologized for some actions and attempted to distance himself from others, the accumulation of allegations left a lasting mark. There were no criminal charges, no courtroom drama, yet the damage was real. Ben Affleck's story is not one of total downfall, but it is a reminder that accountability in Hollywood is rarely simple. Sometimes it arrives not as a verdict, but as a permanent crack in a comeback narrative that can never fully be repaired. In an industry obsessed with reinvention, some reputations recover. Others carry scars that no award can erase. Kevin Spacey. For years, Kevin Spacey was considered one of the most powerful actors in Hollywood. Respected, feared, and admired, he built a reputation as a master of dark, intelligent characters who controlled every scene he entered. Off-screen, he held just as much influence, winning awards, leading major projects, and standing at the very center of prestige television. Then in 2017, everything collapsed. Actor Anthony Rapp publicly accused Spacey of making inappropriate advances toward him when he was a teenager. The allegation detonated instantly, opening the floodgates for others who claimed similar experiences spanning decades. One by one, men came forward describing uncomfortable encounters, unwanted touching, and behavior they said took place in both professional and private settings. The fallout was immediate and ruthless. Spacey was removed from House of Cards almost overnight. Completed projects cut him out entirely. Invitations vanished. Hollywood did not wait for trials or verdicts. The industry turned its back in record time. As the accusations multiplied, Spacey faced legal action in both the United States and the United Kingdom. Some cases were later dismissed or dropped, while others never reached a courtroom. Spacey denied wrongdoing throughout, releasing carefully worded statements and attempting public comebacks that were met with overwhelming backlash. What made Spacey's downfall so chilling was how complete it was. One moment he was among the most celebrated actors alive. The next, he was effectively erased from the industry he once dominated. No farewell tour, no slow decline, just a hard stop. Kevin Spacey's story became a defining moment in Hollywood's reckoning. A warning about power left unchecked, about silence that lasts too long, and about how quickly an empire built on prestige can crumble when the spotlight turns the other way. In Hollywood, fame can protect you for years, but when it breaks all at once. Danny Masterson. For years, Danny Masterson was best known as the sarcastic fan favorite from that 70s show. He grew up in the spotlight, transitioned smoothly into adult roles, and appeared to be one of the lucky child actors who made it out unscathed. Off-screen, he projected confidence, exclusivity, and influence within powerful circles. That image collapsed in 2017. 3 women, all former members of the Church of Scientology like Masterson himself, came forward with allegations dating back to the early 2000s. They claimed that incidents occurred at Masterson's home and described a pattern of coercive behavior tied to his celebrity status. The accusations sent shockwaves through Hollywood and immediately altered the trajectory of his career. Masterson denied all allegations, maintaining his innocence. However, the consequences were swift. Netflix removed him from the ranch, and longtime collaborators distanced themselves as public scrutiny intensified. The controversy also pulled the Church of Scientology into the spotlight, as the accusers alleged they were discouraged from reporting their claims to authorities. The church denied any involvement in suppressing reports. The legal process stretched on for years. A first trial ended with a deadlocked jury, but a retrial in 2023 resulted in Masterson being found guilty on multiple counts. He was sentenced to a lengthy prison term, a dramatic and final fall for a former sitcom star. Masterson is currently appealing the verdict. Unlike many Hollywood scandals that fade into ambiguity, Danny Masterson's case reached a definitive and devastating conclusion. It became one of the most high-profile criminal convictions tied to the entertainment industry in the post-Reckoning era. His story serves as a stark reminder that fame can delay accountability, but it does not erase it. In Hollywood, some scandals end in silence. Others end in a courtroom. Chris Noth. For years, Chris Noth embodied power, confidence, and romantic authority on television. From his role as a hard-edged detective to the iconic love interest known as Mr. Big Noth, became a symbol of mature charm and control. He was the man audiences trusted, admired, and followed across decades of hit shows. That image collapsed almost overnight in late 2021. Women came forward with allegations describing serious misconduct that they said occurred over a span of nearly 20 years. According to their accounts, the incidents dated back to the early 2000s and continued into the mid-2010s. The women alleged that Noth used his fame, status, and influence to cross boundaries in situations where consent was not freely given. One accuser claimed that in 2004, Noth invited her under the pretense of discussing career opportunities, only for the encounter to turn into something she said she did not agree to. Another woman alleged a separate incident in New York years later, describing a pattern of behavior that felt calculated and coercive rather than accidental. The industry response was swift. Noth was dropped by his talent agency. CBS terminated his role on The Equalizer. Public support poured in for the accusers, including statements from his former Sex and the City co-stars who expressed shock, sadness, and solidarity with the women who spoke out. Noth denied the allegations, insisting that the encounters were consensual and that the accusations distorted the truth. No criminal convictions followed, but in Hollywood, consequences do not always wait for a courtroom. Within weeks, Chris Noth went from celebrated leading man to professional exile. His comeback appearances vanished, his legacy rewritten in real time. His story stands as another reminder that in an industry driven by power dynamics, the roles people play off screen can matter far more than the ones that made them famous. And once the illusion breaks, there is rarely a second act. Rarely a second act. Rarely a second act. Rarely a second act. Danny Masterson. For years, Danny Masterson was best known as the sarcastic fan favorite from that 70s show. He grew up in the spotlight, transitioned smoothly into adult roles, and appeared to be one of the lucky child actors who made it out unscathed. Off-screen, he projected confidence, exclusivity, and influence within powerful circles. That image collapsed in 2017. 3 women, all former members of the Church of Scientology like Masterson himself, came forward with allegations dating back to the early 2000s. They claimed that incidents occurred at Masterson's home and described a pattern of coercive behavior tied to his celebrity status. The accusations sent shockwaves through Hollywood and immediately altered the trajectory of his career. Masterson denied all allegations, maintaining his innocence. However, the consequences were swift. Netflix removed him from the ranch, and longtime collaborators distanced themselves as public scrutiny intensified. The controversy also pulled the Church of Scientology into the spotlight as the accusers alleged they were discouraged from reporting their claims to authorities. The church denied any involvement in suppressing reports. The legal process stretched on for years. A first trial ended with a deadlocked jury, but a retrial in 2023 resulted in Masterson being found guilty on multiple counts. He was sentenced to a lengthy prison term, a dramatic and final fall for a former sitcom star. Masterson is currently appealing the verdict. Unlike many Hollywood scandals that fade into ambiguity, Danny Masterson's case reached a definitive and devastating conclusion. It became one of the most high-profile criminal convictions tied to the entertainment industry in the post-Reckoning era. His story serves as a stark reminder that fame can delay accountability, but it does not erase it. In Hollywood, some scandals end in silence. Others end in a courtroom. Chris, Noth.